Hey everyone, welcome to another Eternal set review. This time I'm focusing on Strixhaven. All the cards have been spoiled and we are a couple of weeks away from release, so I figured I'd go through the cards that I think might be played in Modern or maybe not so much in Modern. As with my Kaldheim review, I'm focusing on Modern in general because I'm a Modern player. And in the future I might do a similar video to this but for Commander, but for now let's stick to the more popular 60 card format. Modern. Let's start with the commands. So I have some mixed feelings with some of these commands. Obviously I'm going to have a bias towards Quandrix command and Prismari command because I'm more of a teamer player, or a player that likes to play with those three specific colors. I'm not sure that either of these cards are going to see widespread play in the format. I don't think they fundamentally are better upgrades to existing cards. That being said, I think Quandrix command and Prismari command are going to be toyed with a lot, at least in the first few weeks, first month or so, in terms of brewing, adding one or two of to existing decks to add some more utility cards. And I have my eye on those for sure to see if they slot in. Now they are 3 mana, which is asking a lot. At least they are instant speed for the first two, which goes a long way, of course. So again, I don't think these are going to be, format breaking or in any way become mainstays, but I think they have some potential. So this is why I'm really keeping my eye on these two. I'm going to be trying them out personally, obviously in some of the decks that I already have. Witherbloom command is something that excites me because it is only 2 mana, which is always good in a format like Modern. My main concern is not its abilities, because its modes are pretty good. My main concern is that it's sorcery speed, and that really puts a big damper on Witherbloom command, and that's why I don't think it's going to see really any play. I don't think any of the black-green X decks are going to want to replace their existing utility cards with this. I don't see it. So I don't think Witherbloom command is going to really make it there. Lorehold command, again, those modes are pretty cool, but for 5 mana, I don't think any Boros decks or Jeskai decks, I don't think they're going to go there. They're not going to play this on turn 5 or whatever, or complete tap out for something like this. At least I don't think so. So again, Lorehold command, I also don't think is going to see much play. Silver Quill command as well, similar thing here, and it is a sorcery again, so it definitely puts a damper on its utility. And again, I mean, the modes are pretty cool, but I'm trying to think of Death and Taxes. What would they possibly, or Death and Taxes, or any of the other black-white decks that you might see out there in Modern, tokens, or you name it. I don't think that this is what you want to be doing for 4 mana at sorcery speed. So 2 of the 5 commands may or may not see some fringe play. The rest I think are cool, but not necessarily something you're going to be seeing widespread in Modern. So let's move on to the next set of cards, creatures in this case. So Clever Lumimancer, Lumimancer, I should say. I'm going to be saying Luminancer for a long time. Lumimancer is, I think, borderline playable. I know I've heard a lot of people that are going to try right away to put this into a Jeskai deck or some sort of prowess deck in general, and I definitely see the potential. It is 1 white for 0/1, and essentially has prowess, kind of like double prowess, because let's read it real quick here. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, Clever Lumimancer gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So prowess usually is +1/+1 until end of turn, but prowess also touches non-creature spells in general. This one is specifically targeting instances and sorceries, but okay, I mean, the prowess decks play 99% instances and sorceries, if not 100%, when it comes to non-creature spells, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. So it essentially has super prowess or double prowess, which is useful, pretty aggressive. I think from the math, you can set up some turn 2 or turn 3 kills with it. So I think this is definitely going to slot in. I think Clever Lumimancer is going to see long-term play in Modern, not necessarily in high-end decks, but decks that, you know, want to play, let's say, in Jeskai colors or whatever, and are trying to be aggro intensive, I think we're going to see Clever Lumimancer for a long time. Is it going to bubble up to a tier 2, tier 3, tier 1 deck? Maybe. I'm not sure, because the current prowess decks are pretty finely tuned, but we'll see how that goes. Symmetry Sage, I'm less convinced that this is going to see any sort of play. Again, I know that there are some brewers out there that are already trying to shove it into the same type of decks that they're going to be shoving Clever Luminancer in, but we already have very efficient 1-mana prowess style creatures, aggro creatures in Modern, so I could see making room for 4 Clever Lumimancers. I don't see where we can make room for 8. You know, with Clever Luminancer and Symmetry Sage. That being said, Symmetry Sage, I'm sure you're going to see it pop up in some decks, at least in the first few weeks, as pilots try and figure out if it's worth playing. I don't think it is. I don't think we're going to see it there. I think the ability sounds cool, but it's going to fall flat on its face, and I don't see us making room for it. So I just wanted to bring that up. Venerable Warsinger, not a card that's been talked about a lot. Again, I don't think it's going to be seeing high tier play, but for Boros decks, or any decks, I guess, playing blue, red, white, I should say, that are aggro, I like its ability. Let's read it through really quickly here. So it's a Vigilance Trample for 3, and it's a 3/3, so that's decent. Whenever Venerable Warsinger deals combat damage to a player, you may return target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of damage Venerable Warsinger dealt to that player. So it kind of demands that your opponent block it, because if not, you're going to be bringing back creatures that they've previously removed in previous turns, and that's going to be a problem. So it's very aggro-centric. I like it. It's a card that you definitely want to attack in with. My main concern is that it's a 3/3, so a lot of creatures in Modern are going to be able to deal with it relatively easily. It dies to Bolt, but, you know, dies to Bolt is not the biggest factor that I take into consideration when I'm looking at a creature. It is non-legendary, which you could play multiple of these, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, and it has Vigilance, which means you could attack in, and if it survives, you get to have it as a blocker on the flip side as well. So I don't know where this is going to go. I'm definitely going to be playing with it. I like it. It is 3 mana, so it's kind of pushing it, but I'm going to give it a shot. Again, the ability to bring back a creature every turn to the battlefield for free, just by dealing damage to your opponent, is pretty darn cool. Alright, so let's move on to Secret Rendezvous. I'm sorry, I just had to include this card in here. It's total trash. I'm sorry, white players. I'm sorry. Okay, but let's get serious here. Alright, so the next set of cards are cards I think are going to see a lot more sideboard play, if anything. Fracture almost certainly is going to start seeing long-term sideboard play, and I can see already that it's more or less sold out pre-sales for a lot of the stores that I usually look at, and I'm not surprised, especially the foil versions. So let's read it real quick here. For 1 white and 1 black, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or planeswalker, instant speed. This is really great. Yes, there are disenchant. Disenchant exists in white, but this is disenchant plus planeswalker. That's just better. It's just better. Very rarely are you playing mono white, so when you are playing white, chances are you probably have black in the deck as well. So Fracture is going to slot into a lot of decks, a lot of sideboards, and it might free up some space, because not only are you dealing with artifacts and enchantments, but you're also dealing with planeswalkers. There are plenty in the format, so I don't know, I think Fracture is going to be seeing a lot of play in Modern in the sideboards for a very long time. Vanishing Verse is also another card that's really cool. Exile target monocolored permanent. This is going to come in handy in the current meta, especially with Heliod. So again, this is something we're going to be seeing in the sideboards. I think it's going to see, increased play or reduced play depending on what the meta is, what the target is. Everyone's trying to target Heliod right now, so I see Vanishing Verse being, a good sideboard option as well for decks that are playing White-Black X. Go Blank. Not a lot of people talking about it. I think it's maybe too cute for what you're trying to do here, but target player discards 2 cards, then exile all cards from that player's graveyard. That's pretty brutal for 3 mana. I'm thinking about dredge decks. I'm thinking about even control decks that are using Snapcaster Mage or something to recur cards from their graveyard, or any deck that's heavily reliant on their graveyard. This is pretty brutal. I would not want this card played against any of my decks, especially any of my Temur Delver decks, because I'm discarding 2 cards. and then I'm exiling everything from my graveyard, so you're probably neutering my Tarmogoyf or something, or neutering my Dreadhorde Arcanist. Go blank is pretty brutal. I don't think I've seen a similar effect before in this cost range, in this 3 CMC range. So I don't know, it's pretty brutal. I'm not sure if it's good enough to replace existing graveyard hate cards, but yeah, I'm keeping my eye on this one because again, discarding 2 cards and then exiling your entire graveyard is just brutal. So yeah, I want to bring that up. Culling Ritual, I'm not sure if this is going to be seeing more sideboard play, mainboard play, or no play at all. I just think it's cool. Destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less. Add 1 black or 1 green for each permanent destroyed this way. So for 4 mana, it could in theory pay for itself. This is going to be good against decks that build a lot of tokens, or just decks that have a lot of permanents that you want to deal with. Aggro decks in particular are going to really suffer at with cards like this, and I like the fact that you're able to get it for free plus, because depending on how many permanents your opponent has, by turn 4, which is when you'd be able to cast this, on curve, you could be getting 4 mana back, you could be getting 5, 6, 7 mana back, and then ideally do something else as well. So again, I think it's something that, at least right now, looks cool. I'm not sure if it's necessarily good enough to replace the existing, mass removal cards that black has, for example. But, like Damnation, if we use that. But again, this hits all non-land permanents, not just creatures. So there's some utility there. So again, it's another card I wanted to bring up. Alright, next set of cards. So Silver Quill Silencer. I just think this is cool because it does ring back to Meddling Mage, which has a very similar effect, although, let's be honest, Meddling Mage's effect is much stronger because you're just blocking out a spell altogether. In this case, every time that your opponent casts that spell, they lose 3 life, and you draw a card. So that's not bad. If you put in the right deck, I mean, them losing 3 life might be a big issue, and you drawing a card is just great. But, I don't know, I think it just looks cool as you read it, because a lot of us are just thinking about Meddling Mage. I think in reality, I'd rather you not cast a spell than cast and lose 3 life and then I draw a card. I don't know. I could be wrong. I don't play Orzhov style decks very often, but it's something that I want to bring up because we've seen cards like this before, with Meddling Mage as that example. So yeah, just wanted to bring that up. It's on my radar at least. Strict Proctor is pretty cool. Not sure if it's actually going to be good enough to see play in most decks that run white. I mean, really here what you're turning off is effects like Valakut or Primeval Titan, basically the dozens of other cards that see frequent modern play that have entered the battlefield effects. So, I don't know. It's a tax of 2. People will just play around it or just kill it. It has flying, which is fine, it's cool, but it has no flash. I don't know, it's limited. I feel it's limited in its utility. I think, again, it's a cool card. Maybe Death and Taxes decks will play a certain, maybe 1 or 2 of in the sideboard. I don't think it's going to be main board playable. It's just me. I mean, I've tried to assess it in different scenarios. I could be totally wrong. It's definitely on my radar as a card that is going to be seeing play, but I don't know if it's going to be widespread. And then we have Elite Spellbinder, which is pretty close to being also another playable card in Death and Taxes decks. Now I'm thinking about Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, as a card that would work really well with this one because you're really hurting your opponent in terms of casting anything. So my main concern here is that it doesn't have flash, so you're not going to be able to do it as a kind of a gotcha. I think it was the professor who mentioned Vendilion Click, so this is not going to be the Vendilion Click for white, so it has its limitations. But that being said, it's another way to get rid of a card from your opponent's hand and have them pay a tax if they actually want to, cast it. So, will it see play? Maybe a little bit. I don't know how much room you can make in your Death and Taxes build for it. It's definitely not going to see 4 of. That's a bit intense, unlike Thalia, which usually does see 4 of. But maybe 1 or 2 of. We'll see. Again, it's on my radar. I'm not sure how it's actually going to pan out. It is also 3 mana, which is quite a bit. Alright, so how about these cards? So Thrilling Discovery obviously is reminding me and reminding everyone of Cathartic Reunion. It kind of has the similar effects, but some of the wording is jumbled up that changes the way this card is played. So for 1 red and 1 white, you gain 2 life, which is okay, whatever. Then you may discard 2 cards if you do draw 3 cards. So obviously everyone has already said it. What's better with this card than with Cathartic Reunion is that if it gets countered, you don't lose any cards out of it. Whereas with Cathartic Reunion, it's part of the casting cost. You have to discard 2. So you discard 2 cards and then I counter it and then nothing happens. And you just discarded 2 cards and got nothing out of it. Whereas with this one, if worst case, if it gets countered, well, then nothing happens. At least nothing negative to you apart from it being countered. So I don't know if it's a strict upgrade, but you know, it might be an upgrade for non-dredge decks, but I think even dredge is probably going to be playing some number of these alongside Cathartic Reunions. I don't think it's going to be replacing Cathartic Reunion. It'll probably be like Cathartic Reunion 5 and 6 in the deck. So yeah, Thrilling Discovery is actually pretty cool for dredge decks, which I hate profusely. But you know, it is what it is. Harness Infinity, I'm not sure. I'm going to be honest with you. I put Harness Infinity here because I feel like if it is played in Modern, no one's paying its mana cost. Like if it's being cast, it's because you're casting it for free, or you found some other way to cast it, obviously, without paying its full mana cost. I'm not sure how it can be abused, but I think it will. I'm not sure how. So I'm just hedging here. I want, bring it to your attention. First, the artwork is pretty cool. Everyone is saying that. But the effect is unique. Don't think I've seen it. I mean, Living End for some reason came to my mind, but Living End doesn't do this. But I don't know. I don't know why Living End popped into my head. But exchange your hand in your graveyard, exile Harness of Infinity. Okay, so I don't know. I'm sure someone will figure out a way to abuse this. Maybe not. Something deep down inside me says it'll see no play. But I wanted to bring it up because again, it was whenever you have weird effects like this and it has some weird mana cost, people will find ways to cheat it out. So that's just usually how it goes. Test of Talents. I saw a few people bring this up. I don't think Test of Talents is going to see play, whether it's the main board or sideboard. A lot of people are comparing it to Negate or whatever. I don't see it. So let's just read it real quick. There's a wall of text here. Counter target instant or sorcery spell. Searches controls graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards with the same name as that spell and exile them. That player shuffles then draws a card for each card exiled from their hand this way. Okay, so some type of surgical extraction-like effect where you're going through their graveyard, hand, and library and getting rid of that card. But it's worse because they get to draw cards for the amount of cards you remove from their hand. I mean, even though percentages-wise it won't happen often, but still. And then it only targets instants and sorceries, whereas Negate, for example, just targets non-creature spells, which is relevant. I don't know. I could be super wrong. I do play blue a lot. I don't see myself playing this. I'd rather just play Negate and Surgical Extraction in my sideboard and deal with problematic spells that way. That's just me. I could be wrong because in theory, this is a card that kind of merges 2 cards together. So you save space in your side, or in your main, if you're playing Negate in the main, but the ability to not be able to target artifacts, enchantments, and planeswalkers is a problem for me. So I don't know, maybe one of or something, but I don't know how often we're actually going to see this. Plus the opponent has to actually cast the spell in the first place, whereas with Surgical Extraction, for example, you could do it. You could have them discard the card somehow and then get rid of it. I don't know. We'll see. I don't think this is going to see any play. That's my hedge. So last but not least, so this card is not going to be legal in Modern until Modern Horizons 2 is released, but it basically got spoiled through these special cards, obviously, about in Harvest. So it's gonna be printed, but it's not gonna be playable, at least in Modern, which is interesting. But sure, why not? Let's take a look at it because I'm super stoked about this card. It's actually, I hate Wizards in a way because they totally teased us. We're not gonna be able to play this for a couple more months, but let's just read Abundant Harvest here for 1 green. Choose a land or non-land. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a card of the chosen kind. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. All right, so let me get this straight. I'm playing Temur Delver. I have 1 land in hand, in my opening hand, and I have 1 Abundant Harvest. I keep it, and I'm essentially guaranteed a second land drop at some point whenever I deem it to be necessary, because I could play Abundant Harvest, I could choose land, and I'm going to get a land 100% of the time. that's pretty darn cool. That's useful. That is very useful. And late game, where I don't need lands anymore, well, I'll spin the wheel, and I hope I get a non-land card that I need. Most of the time, I will, and we go from there. So I think Abundant Harvest is awesome. I think it's going to be an awesome addition to the modern toolbox, at least for green. I know I'm comparing it here to Ancient Stirrings, Traverse the Elvenwald, and Once Upon a Time. Obviously, Once Upon a Time is banned in Modern, but at one point, for a very short time, Once Upon a Time, it was legal. But I mean, let's look at Ancient Stirrings. It's not going to be replacing Ancient Stirrings, obviously, but I definitely think it's going to be added on top of Ancient Stirrings, so 5, 6, 7, whatever it may be. Ancient Stirrings, you get to look at the top 5 cards of your library, and you may choose a colorless card from it, put it into your hand, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. You're only looking through the top 5. You're not guaranteed to get a card that you need. Abundant Harvest will guarantee it a bit better because you can choose land or not land. So if you need a land, just choose land. You're going to reach a land. If you need a non-land, just go non-land. I think it works perfectly fine in Tron decks. Traverse the Elvenwald is a bit different, obviously. So, for 1 green, I could just search my library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into my hand, and shuffle my library. So in that sense, has similar effects to Abundant Harvest, whereas Abundant Harvest, though, could hit any land, where Traverse the Elvenwald, you could only hit basics, unless you have Delirium. If you have Delirium, then you can choose to get any land or any creature, which is cool. So again, it has different utility, different effects. These are all sorcerers, except for Once Upon a Time, which is crazy. But again, if I'm comparing Abundant Harvest to cards I already have in Modern, Traverse the Elvenwald comes to mind as well. And Once Upon a Time, which was obviously broken, for very obvious reasons. If the spell is this first spell you cast this game, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. This is ridiculous. I can't believe they thought this was a good idea. Look at the top 5 cards of your library, move you a creature or a land card from among them, put them into your hand, put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. So, obviously you're not going to see this ever again in Modern or in Magic. Hopefully, they've learned their lesson. So, I don't know. Abundant Harvest, I'm really excited about. Let me know what you think. Obviously I could compare it to blue cantrips as well, like Serum Vision sleight of hand, but I don't think it's a fair comparison. So I'm just comparing it to green. Yeah, let me know what you think in the comment section down below on what kind of modern play it's going to see. And that's it for my set review for Strixhaven. Overall, I'm slightly underwhelmed at the cards that are potentially modern playable, because usually the way this thing goes is, there'll be 10, 15 cards that everyone has their eye on, but realistically, maybe half, if you're lucky, actually stick in Modern. And here we actually have much less. I was very generous with the amount of cards I went through in this video. So we might see 1 or 2, which is a bit unfortunate. And the one card that is definitely going to be seeing play is not even legal yet. And it's not even technically part of Strixhaven. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Kind of underwhelmed. I was really hoping for some really cool tools for blue, or for red, or for green, or for anything really. And we got some, but not the ones I was expecting or hoping for. So a bit of a womp womp on that. But there's Modern Horizons 2 all around the corner. Looking forward to that. But yeah, anyway, let me know what cards I may have missed in the comment section down below. Totally possible that I did. And yeah, we'll go from there. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you enjoy my content in general, please subscribe and hit notification bell. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Share my content on social media. All that stuff takes a couple of seconds for you, but for me and the channel, it really goes a long way. Would really appreciate it. If you want to go a step further and support me on Patreon, check out the Patreon link in the description of this video. Check out the tiers. I basically have patron rewards. At the end of every year, you get patron rewards, and the longer your patron, the more rewards you get. But all that information is on Patreon. Check it out. Thanks, and have a good one.